Hello, hope you're doing great. This is Maria Pani Rajan, your friendly software developer, and welcome back to Introduction to Python. All right, so this is the fourth video in this series, and like in a previous video, we spoke in depth about data. Like how data is so fundamental for software engineers, and like as a matter of fact, data is the fundamental building blocks that are used by software engineers to build useful software products and applications. Yes. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about data types. So we now understand that data is very crucial. Makes sense. Now, how do we, like capture that data and do interesting things with it? Like how do we process the data and get value out of it? To do that, we first would need to start classifying the data into different segments so that we can operate on them. Like that's how we as humans like operate, right? Like let's say I am giving you like a piece of data. I'm giving you a data 5. That's, you intuitively know, as soon as I say 5, you intuitively know that it's a number, right? And let me give you another piece of data, 3. All right, so you again, like as soon as I said 3 to you, you immediately understand that that is also a number. Now if I ask you to add, like the first data and the second data, as in like add 5 and 3, you know that, yes, 5 is a number, 3 is a number. I can just add 5 and 3 and like get another number which is 8. Yes, you know that. Now let's say I give you another piece of data. Let me just give you the data, a name. Let me give you the name John. All right, John. All right, so that's the name I'm giving you. That I'm giving you these characters. Now this is also a data. Now if I ask you now to add John and the number 3, that doesn't actually make sense to you, right? Like I mean, how will you even add John, which you intuitively knew that it is a bunch of characters? It's not a number. It's like it's English, right? It's like um, you can call it as a string of characters, right? It's not number. It's not numeral. You know that. So we know for sure that we won't be able to add John, the name John, with a number, right? Um, so like it makes sense for us to classify this data, right? Like at least if I, let's say for example, let's say I give you a name John, and if I give you another name, let's say I give you another name, Deepak. Now if I ask you to add these two names, John and Deepak, you can do that. You can say John Deepak. That at least makes sense for you because you are at least adding two different pieces of data of the same data type. The same way, right? In the same way, like we as humans understand that, right? Like only when we have data of similar data types, we will be able to process them and create useful results out of it. In the same way, in computers and computer science, which is just a human, we as humans made this, right? It's like, it didn't appear out of nowhere. We created this, right? So it obviously it's going to reflect us. So in computer science as well, data is classified into different data types so that we will be able to process them to get useful results out of it, right? So that's basically data types. Now Python, like out of the box, like offers us a couple of basic data types for us to use. So I've just outlined, like these four different commonly used data types. There are, like more, but these are, like the most fundamental and commonly used data types that you would require to understand in Python, right? So the first is the int, you have the float, and then you have booleans and strings. All right, so now integers and floats, yes, they are, like numerals, right? Like integers is the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have the floats, which is basically the decimal numbers, right? 1.1, 2.3, 1.57, and so on. So that's the decimals, right? So those are, uh, that particular type of data is called float in Python. And then you have booleans, which is, like either 0 or 1, which, like here it's called true or false, true or false. These are the only two values this particular type of data could hold. All right. So, and then we have the string, which we already, talked about, right? Like with these characters, like the name or the, like any string of characters, it's stored in a string, usually the, the English characters, or, like those basically like names and email IDs and so on are stored using the string data type. Now, in today's video, we're going to use the Python interpreter, right? So in Python interpreter, it's very easy to just, because it immediately gives you feedback. It's easy for us to see a bunch of examples, really quickly. So we are going to do that now. Now, let me just open the Python interpreter by just typing Python. Cool. So here, now we have the Python interpreter. Here, the first data type, integer. All right. Let me just give you a couple of examples for that. So 5, that's an integer. And then 3, like that's another integer, right? Now let's ask Python interpreter now to, do some interesting operations on this these two data that we supply to it, right? Now let's say 5 and let's say 3. All right. So now this, if you observe 5 plus 3, like this is a basic mathematical, this is basic maths, right? So this is an, in mathematical terms, you will call this as an operand, and this as an operator, and this as another operand, right? This is not even computer science. Here we're just talking max. So operand, operator, and another operand. Now with this you can do an operation, and Python interpreter is smart enough to do that. Now when we said 5, it just returned to us 5. When we said 3, it returned to us 3. But now when we say 5 plus 3 and press enter, voila, it's smart enough to understand that this is an integer number and this is another integer and this is an operator. So, like I can operate on these two similar data types to produce an output. Now this is just a basic example. We can do even more. Let's try something more interesting. Let's say 5 into 2, 10, right? And also, like everything that you learned in max applies here. Now even, parentheses you can use, like 5 into 2, right? And then let's add, let's say 7. Now first this is going to get operated, right? Like, so you will get 10 and then plus 7, right? So now we have 17s. So you can start doing interesting operations on this data. So this is like pretty cool. Now let's do even more interesting things. Let's say 5, which is a integer. Till now we have been dealing only with integers, and let me just divide this 5 by 2. All right, what do you think is going to happen now? Now 5 divided by 2, let's press enter and see. Instead of returning to us a integer, now it has returned to us a decimal value, right? And it makes sense. Obviously it makes sense, because like 5 divided by 2 is like 2.5. That's the correct answer. But we need to look into what just happened here, right? Just take a step back and understand, just observe, and just think about what just happened here. We gave this interpreter an input which is of the data type int, 2 which is also the data type int, but it has returned to us another data type which is a decimal. All right, like as a matter of fact, like there's a very useful utility function that is available in Python, just like the utility function print which we saw in the previous video. There's another utility function called type. Let's use that to understand what is going on. All right, so I'll just say type. I'll just type, no pun intended. Anyway, so type, and I will just like say 5. All right, so I'm going to just understand. So this is like, like now we're trying to understand the piece of the software that we're writing here. Now I want to understand what is the type of this particular operand. All right, type of 5. Let's press enter. It's int. Okay, it's an integer. We have proof. It's pragmatic, right? We have proof. Now let's say type of the second operand, which is 2, this one. That's again an integer. All right, so we now clearly know that this is an integer and this again is an integer. All right, now the output that we receive 2.5, let's see what data type that is. Type of 2.5, see, even though we gave integers as inputs, both the data 5 is of type int, 2 is of type int. When we divided it, Python is smart enough to return back to us a float, because it's a different data type, but that's the right answer, right? Like when you divide 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. But the thing is, we can do even more interesting things. Let's say 5 double, like let's put double slashes and 2. You know let's see what happens now. When I press enter, you know did you just see what happens now? 5 divided by 5 double slashes 2, now it has given to us 2. Is this the right answer? Hmm? Just think about it. 5 slash slash 2, it has given to us 2. All right, I will take it even a step above. Now let's say 5 modulo, see, again these are just operators, right? Like for these operations, 2. Now when I press enter, it's giving me 1. I mean, what is this? What is happening here? 5 slash slash 2 is 2. It's supposed to be 2.5, right? And 5 modulo 2 is 1. What is going on here? We know, right? Like in max, right? Again, this is just max, right? Like that's the reason max and computer science is so closely related. Now the thing is here, how do you divide? How do you traditionally divide? Let's just put the division thing, and like let's say 5 and 2. All right, so this is the dividend, right? These are just mathematical terms, right? The dividend, and this is the divisor, the number that is going to divide the dividend. And so, like, so how do you do this? 2 twos are 4. This is so natural to us, right? 2 twos are 4. So you put 4 here, and then, you put 1 here. Now, like in max, you remember, like in your max exams and all, like the answer, how would you write the exam answer? So this value is let me just put it in a different color. Let me just yeah, red or something. So this color is like, what is it? It's actually the quotient, right? And this value is the reminder, right? So like it's, but actually the correct answer like would be 2.5, obviously. Like it's a decimal value, but you can represent the same like 2.5, right? Like, but you can represent the same using the quotient and the reminder as well, right? 2 twos are 4, and then you have a reminder 1. So that's exactly what like Python is helping us here. Python is giving to us here. So yes, by just saying 5 divided by 2, you get the right answer. Like that intuitively makes sense. 5 divided by 2 is, yes, 2.5. And Python also gives us the provision, like to get the quotient and also the reminder. So when you say double slash, 5 double slash 2, it gives you the quotient, which is 2 in this case. And if you say 5 modulo 2, it will give you the reminder. So this is, like these operators would come really in handy when you're doing like more interesting programs. But just keep these in mind. Yeah, so these are all numerals, right? So we have seen the integers and we have seen the floats. Now let's check out Boolean. All right, what's a Boolean? So Boolean, as I told before, can either be true or false, right? So like let me just make this a bit smaller. Like, all right, cool. So here I can say either true, I can say type true, and it returns to me true, and I can type false and it returns to me false. All right, so these are keywords in Python. So that's something that you need to keep in mind, especially when we go to the next data type, which is string. Like there are certain characters which are reserved in Python, and it needs to be like not used commonly, so that there's no ambiguity. So here, like in Python, when you say true with a capital T, all right, TRUE, this is a value. This is a Boolean value, true, and false, false. All right. So we'll be doing a lot of interesting things with these with the Boolean data type as well, especially all the logic that you would write using your computer programs highly depend on Booleans. All right. Like for example, if certain conditions are true, like proceed. For example, Facebook. Let's when you log into Facebook, only if your password and your only when your username and your password are valid, it's a boolean. If it's valid means if it is true, then allow them inside Facebook. Like so any piece of logic that you would want to write in your software program, requires booleans, and we would be seeing them more in the next videos. Then we have string. In Python, string is a very powerful object. All right. So as I told you before, every thing in Python is an object. So as a matter of fact, even this bool, right? Like let me just type and say true. See it the this character true is of the type bool. All right. So that's it. And now let's move on to the last data type, which is the string. Now the string is, as I told earlier, is a string of characters. So let's type hello. All right. So this, you can see that as since the string, it's like in quotes, whereas this true and false, since it's not a string, it's actually a value. It doesn't have these quotes, right? Like, but whereas here this hello is within single quote. Now this hello, let me just type hello. All right. So you can see that it is of the type str, which is a string. So there are a lot of functionalities that like are available with strings, which we would be seeing like in the upcoming videos. But just understand that. So this is like a string. It's just a series of characters. All right. This is the different data type. Now the thing is, as I like told earlier, like we could do interesting things with data, right? So that's the whole point why we are having all these different classifying this data into different data types, and like so that we can process and refine them and create use of things. Now we saw earlier that 5, which is an int, and 3, which is another int, was able to give us 8, which is also another int. And we also saw 5 divided by 2 gives a float, 2.5. Now what would happen if I say like John plus Deepak? Do you think that this is a valid statement in Python? John is a string, like, and Deepak is another string, right? So, and we know that, right? Like, let me just even, prove that to you. Type of John is obviously a string, and type of Deepak is also a string. Now, these two strings, can I add them? Like, can I add two names? John plus Deepak. Can I do this? Right? Yes, you can. John Deepak. Python is smart enough to add two strings, add two, string of characters. Like that's how you would do, right? When if I say add John and Deepak, you would say John Deepak. Like you wouldn't try to, like numerically add them. You would add them, John plus Deepak, John Deepak. So that's what like Python has done here. When I gave it a one string John and another string Deepak, it just, when I give it the operator plus, it just concatenated these two string of characters together and just wrote John Deepak. It doesn't even it does not given any space in between them, because it doesn't know that you didn't tell it to give any space. It just like concatenated them together. If you wanted a space, you would just do something like this. Yeah, so now you see, you have it as a space. So yeah, so these are the different types of data types that are available with Python. All right, so the type conversion and variables we would see in the next video, because already like this video is becoming long now. I hope this video was useful, like and hope it makes sense. We spoke about uh, why we have data types to begin with, like data types. Why we have data types? Because we need classification, data classification, so that we can process them in useful ways. Like numbers and like strings and booleans, we need that, right? So that we can make sense of the data and process it and produce interesting and useful results. So that's the reason we need to classify the data into different data types. And we saw the different data types that are available with Python, which is basically the integer, float, boolean, string. We also have complex numbers and so on, but these are the most commonly used data types that you would come across using on a everyday basis. So cool. Hope this video was useful, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.